where those who perceive truth may strive to make others see.
A big, powerful America, and shoot them for what?
On that continent, we are trying to forge a new identity for which we need each other.
A revolutionary, and you're gonna have to keep on saying that.
In Whitney Webb's book, One Nation Under Blackmail, a quote really puts our position in perspective. And I'm going to be paraphrasing this, but in a helicopter, one of the well-funded few, let's say, this guy says that Epstein is a real genius. And he doesn't have any moral hiccups either. There's a number of reasons why the good guys lost. And I think a lot of people need to understand that a lot of these quote unquote good guys, they weren't willing to suffer and sacrifice enough for future generations. And I feel like that's a hard pill to swallow, but it's a requirement to really, really get through and do what needs to be done, I believe. A lot of us are told that weakness is okay and that the world should allow for weaker people to be more comfortable. And I would say that this is false. This message may sound like it, but it isn't particularly gender specific. And I really want to state, I've noticed something in particular, particularly for men. A lot of people focus on this ability to suffer or become strong and end up being called toxic masculine, or labeled as labeled in the framework of toxic masculinity. And I think a lot of male influencers really do fail at addressing really the topic in a genuine manner, and they fail at really creating balance in general. But a lot of people who really scream toxic masculinity the loudest, they should understand that the world won't respond to their demands. And the truth is that we live in a society that actually makes it comfortable for particularly weak people who are particularly morally weak people, right? And the system really makes it comfortable to sell out, even if it seems like a small thing at first. It's designed that way, right? Because it's rare to see someone descend straight into hell with one leap. It's more often that people get there through a staircase that makes each step downward easier than the last one, and vice versa for anyone looking to return to living in alignment with any sense of morals that they once had. I work with a nonprofit, and this nonprofit was they took money from interests that restricted them from openly supporting Gaza. And these particular individuals, they seem passionate about the cause, but their hands were tied. And another situation was where I was asked to advertise for a small record label, and they were willing to help me, and this was when I was organizing and trying to get people interested, and they were willing to really help me out in a few ways that would have been helpful, but in the end I declined based on the fact that I'm aiming to create systems that make it easier for musicians to connect with audiences without the middle managers. And this is not necessarily to brag about my sense of my sternness and create and maintaining this morality, or this moral lifestyle. It's just to really let people know that the long game has to be in sight for a lot of us, because these systems were designed in a very strategic manner. And particularly today, I think we're likely coming to the realization that anybody who's really paying attention may say that this current administration is both especially unconstitutional and incompetent. And either way, I would say that it's not looking good for MAGA in general, right? But whatever you may think, I think the problem that we really have in particular in terms of right now looking at things is really in the democratic response, I would say, because I noticed two things that were just both crazy, but one crazier than the other. One where they seem to platform and put a spotlight on an heir to a billionaire's fortune, right? And this person is, if they're not already, a billionaire now, they're definitely going to be, right? And the idea here is that we don't want to paint all billionaires with a stroke of evil, right? And under one umbrella, but saying that there's a good billionaire who's gonna fight for everybody else is, I would say, even more of a stretch, right? You don't just, I mean, I think you guys really should understand. You don't get and maintain $1 billion plus by looking around and saying, "Wow, income equality is really something, man. I should maybe pay my employees more." What you do is you look around at your friends with really big yachts, with servants, with mines, with private islands, and you think to yourself, "Wow, maybe I can get rich enough to buy an even bigger island than Jim. All I gotta do is overthrow this quote-unquote third world country that can't afford to oppose our military." And this is reality for a lot of these guys, right? They don't look around at people in an eye-to-eye level and try to come at someone from that particular place. I think a lot of them who attempt to do that would probably make a fool of themselves. I mean, you see, I think there was something with like Mark Zuckerberg and like AI, and how AI was gonna be like a really, really solid companion for people in the future who are lonely. It's crazy. It's very crazy, and I think at the very best, I think people, just rich people in general, but also like especially like if you're in the billion plus club, you should really just be quiet and stay just completely unseen in today's world, right? And I would also like, I mean, I think this example is, I mean, this next example I think is probably the most hard-hitting one, because there's a senator in Michigan that her name is Elisa Slotkin, and I am not playing here. Like, she openly talks about her service after 9/11 in the CIA. And I mean, this woman's like being platformed. It seems like she's trying to like be one of the representatives to fight for Democrats, and it is. I think it's crazy to think that you could say that out loud, and it but it shows us how disconnected really these guys are from normal people, right? And I couldn't picture a better person to really put in front of a crowd than Elisa Slotkin here. And every time I hear her name and I'm reminded her, I just keep thinking that Will Smith and like Tommy Lee Jones and like the Men in Black, they're gonna gather everybody up and they're gonna use that neuralizer on everybody. This idea is crazy, but I mean, after I think a lot of us have hope because of really, I think we see people, particularly like Bernie Sanders, right? And I want to say, like, after what the Democrats did to Bernie, we really need to understand that he may simply be the shepherd that gives people hope that if we keep voting blue, there's a way forward. And as incompetent and unconstitutional that as this administration may very well be, we need to realize that the Democrats are not led by the good guys. We talked about that system, right? That drag load in the system really does it's designed to accumulate drag load, right? You accumulate interest. So much so that when it comes to supporting particularly a country out in the Middle East that probably shouldn't be getting the amount of support that it's getting from the United States, everyone's quiet, right? Like the entire city hall is crickets. They stand up and support, right? They do whatever they need to do, and we need to realize that. I mean, our system is, it's designed to select for bad guys, right? And the baddest guy that they can get away with. And I want to say, like, if China or Russia released like a diss track, I think they would like just simply destroy us, because I'm just picturing like what they can put on the actual CD, and our city hall would look worse than the cover art for Not Like Us. You know, like that idea of what we are in terms of our government, what we are abroad, what we do abroad. We need to understand that this is we don't necessarily have to act like it is supposed to be this way. We don't have to act like things are always going to be this way. But there needs to be a real understanding that a lot of us should come to now, in particular, because we're at the end of we're at the end of one long Ponzi scheme, especially with, if you guys look at just the cost of living and everything else. I think it's a very much a real fact that a lot of people are coming to, and it's dark. I recently asked a friend who was kind of familiar with what I was trying to do, right? And I asked this guy, I said, hey, I'm looking for a job that would kind of align with my purpose or kind of help me build skills toward really, that would be in alignment with my particular purpose. And I'm paraphrasing what he said, but it was basically, you have to find a way to do this yourself, right? And he painted this in much, like, he was much better with the wording than I am, but that's the overall message that I got. And this is reality. We are the pioneers, and the good guys lost because they fixated on making it a fair race rather than competing with the disadvantage that exists. So, I am sorry, and I hope that you act accordingly.